Thanks to the 1000-Year Blood War arc anime, we are being introduced to new elements, which allows fans to experience the story of Bleach which they are otherwise very familiar with in a totally brand new light. During the recent events of the 1000-Year Blood War arc anime, we had seen a younger Yhwach and Ichibei not just as characters, but as pivotal pieces in a game of chess which had started over 1,000 years ago. There is a lot going on when it comes to new material that is expanding upon the Bleach lore. In 2021, we had No Breathes from Hell, which teases us with a future new story arc, and in the anime we have a mind-bending flashback from Core 2 which totally recontextualizes the events of the manga. This flashback literally changes everything that we thought that we had known about Yhwach and his mysterious power, the Almighty. This flashback also serves to create a divergent ripple within the timeline of the Bleach story, a timeline that completely alters the events leading up to Yhwach regaining the powers of the Almighty, and in turn changing how the battle between himself and Ichibei ends. In order to properly understand this anime exclusive flashback and to appreciate how it affects Yhwach regaining the Almighty, I'm going to be exploring several aspects about Yhwach's character, including the mystery behind the Quincy Emperor song, a prophecy that was passed down the generations of Quincy which promised the return of their king. Hopefully by the end of this video you'll be able to understand several mysterious aspects about Yhwach's power, the Almighty, and how this one single anime flashback may just change the course of the Bleach story forever. In this video, I don't just want to answer how Yhwach could regain the Almighty in the anime, I want to properly explain why he is going to regain it, when exactly this is going to happen, and what will happen to the story after he regains the Almighty in this new way. Trust me, you're going to want to stick around until the end of this video because I'll be discussing things that not even the Almighty could foresee. So without further delay, this is my explanation on how Yhwach regains the Almighty based upon all of the new information that we learn within the 1000-Year Blood War arc anime. Let's begin by discussing why I believe that the anime is going to differ when it comes to how Yhwach regains the powers of the Almighty. We need to first draw our attention towards what is the Kaiser Gesang or the Quincy Emperor song, because despite its loose presence within the manga, the flashback from episode 24 had placed it in a very interesting position. The Quincy Emperor song is a piece of Quincy folklore which most of us are familiar with. The Kaiser Gesang prophesizes about the return of Yhwach as well as the number of years and the overall time that it would take for Yhwach to be revived and to regain his full power. When we had first heard about the Quincy Emperor song within the manga, I'm sure that a lot of us didn't think much about it, disregarding it as some hype countdown that was meant to build up Yhwach as some really massive threat. But upon closer inspection and how much importance the anime places upon the Emperor song, it makes me appreciate just how different the anime is to the manga. I believe that the Kaiser Gesang is significantly more important to the story than we could have ever imagined, and thanks to Kubo's input within the anime, he is making sure that this is conveyed to us. Hopefully after I go over the episode 24 flashback and what this implies for the remainder of the story, you'll undoubtedly have a newfound appreciation for the Kaiser Gesang which otherwise we glanced over within the pages of the manga. Now the flashback from episode 24 does a lot for the characters involved within it, and it adds some really great depth to the world building of Bleach, while also introducing a pivotal twist which comes in the form of ICHIBE'S involvement. Nowhere within the manga was it even remotely implied that Ichibei had met with Yhwach over 1,000 years ago. The only thing that we had to go off of was a few lines of dialogue exchanged between Yhwach and Ichibei during their big battle, which alluded to the fact that the two of them were aware of each other before the fight. Now to learn that Ichibei played a much bigger role in Yhwach's backstory is definitely a game changer, because during the episode 24 flashback we finally find out why Yhwach was defeated by Yamamoto 1,000 years ago, since most of us had assumed that this battle had taken place while Yhwach had the power of the Almighty. But this was proven wrong, since the flashback reveals that Ichibei had in fact sealed Yhwach's power, effectively rendering the Almighty unusable by him. He seals the deal by promising that Yhwach will be unable to gain access to the Almighty until the day that he dies. For anime only viewers who don't know what happens within the manga, they have little reason to doubt Ichibei's words here, here, as they explicitly state that Yhwach should not have been able to reactivate the Almighty. Manga readers, on the other hand, are aware that Yhwach was only able to negate ICHIBE'S powers because he had activated the powers of the Almighty, but how things unfold within the manga now contradict what has been established within the anime. How on earth is Yhwach going to negate ICHIBE'S powers if the anime has established via this anime exclusive flashback that the Almighty was sealed 1000 years ago? This introduces a significant contradiction which the anime needs to overcome. In addition to this, you then have the Quincy Emperor song, which was somehow able to predict that in 999 years after Yhwach's defeat by the Shinigami, he would supposedly be able to return in a blaze of glory and even be able to use the Almighty which was sealed by Ichibei. In my opinion, this is very strange because Ichibe's powers have been established to be completely absolute. They are not to be confused with some flimsy Kido spell or some low caliber seal that would weaken over time. Ichibe's powers have authority that cannot be contested by literally any power within the Bleach universe. So if this is the case, then why is Yhwach able to regain the Almighty? And how were the Quincy's able to prophesize and predict the exact minute that Yhwach would be able to regain the powers of the Almighty? In the manga, it is heavily implied that Hashward, along with the remaining Schutzstaffel members, were aware of how much time was remaining for Yhwach to regain the Almighty, and it's plausible to assume that they knew he would regain the power during his fight with Ichibei. But this results in all of the events that have unfolded within the manga being completely contradictory to the anime flashback. This leads me to believe that Kubo is creating a whole new story thread which will explain in depth how Yhwach is going to regain the Almighty within Core 3 of the anime. In order to do this, Kubo is going to need to establish how Yhwach regains his powers that were sealed by Ichibei, while also explaining how the Kaiser Gesang was accurately able to predict when Yhwach would regain the Almighty power. Maybe this was something that Kubo had written way back when the manga was releasing, but he didn't have time to include it within the story until now. If Kubo wanted a very easy way to solve this contradiction, then he would have just not included the Kaiser Gesang within the anime. But as we all know, the Quincy Emperor song has received significantly more attention within the anime than it did within the manga. If you remember, the first scene of episode 1 of the 1000 Year Blood War arc anime is literally the Kaiser Gesang narrated by Yhwach, which is a perfect way to establish a brand new story arc and a villain, while also foreshadowing future events like the revival of Yhwach's complete power. The changes within the anime have resulted in a lot of questions being up in the air, but it points to the fact that Yhwach reawakening the Almighty will be handled very differently to how it was within the manga. So hopefully Yhwach finally regaining these powers is going to be given a lot more context so it doesn't seem like some extremely convenient power-up which activates at the last minute which allows him to defeat Ichibei. I hope that this also explains why the finale of Ichibei vs Yhwach was delayed until Core 3, because it will enable Kubo and the anime staff to have more time to include way more new information which will give us more of a satisfactory conclusion to the battle between Ichibei vs Yhwach, which neither feels rushed or has elements of convenient plot armor to it. Like I mentioned earlier, one of the important aspects of this mystery of how Yhwach could regain the Almighty is the Kaiser Gesang and who in fact had wrote it. How were the surviving Quincy after the defeat of Yhwach able to determine that Ichibe's seal was going to lose its effect in 999 years? Could it be that one of the Quincy who served under Yhwach had awakened the Shrift ability to see into the future? Thus they were able to predict when Yhwach would return and regain his sight in the future. I do hope that Core 3 reveals more information about the origins of the Kaiser Gesang, as it would reveal a lot of key information about Yhwach's old army, the Empire of Light. I just have trouble believing that Ichibe's seal would be able to randomly deactivate after a certain time frame, because Ichibei promised that Yhwach would be unable to open his eyes until the day that he dies, which effectively means that the Almighty has been indefinitely sealed for the remainder of Yhwach's life. When we look at the exact moment when Yhwach had regained the Almighty within the manga, it was in fact right after he was killed by Ichibei. What if the seal that Ichibei had placed on Yhwach was specifically designed to be broken after his death? So you might be thinking that if this was the case, then Yhwach should have awakened it 1000 years ago after being defeated by Yamamoto. But that would actually be wrong, since it stated that Yamamoto didn't actually succeed in killing Yhwach. This statement comes from a very reliable source, and that source is in fact Mayuri, which would mean that Yhwach didn't actually experience true death until his battle with Ichibei over a millennium later. During the finale of Ichibei Ichibei versus Yhwach, Yhwach was stripped of all of his power by Ichimonji and he was crushed to death. Now I'm sure that you may be thinking that if Yhwach was truly killed here, wouldn't he have just died from that attack? Well, this assumption would be wrong, because we find out in chapter 684 that the Almighty is able to transcend death itself, which means that even if Yhwach were to truly die, the Almighty would still be able to bring him back to life. And with his death being the condition for the end of the seal, Yhwach would still be able to use the Almighty even after he has been killed. This theory explains the contradictions between the Kaiser Gesang and the anime exclusive flashback, allowing both story elements to seamlessly coexist whilst also adding an extra layer of thematic depth to the finale of Ichibei vs Yhwach. My theory would allow for some very interesting poetic irony on Ichibei's part, where by his own arrogance he had ended up empowering the enemy who he was so certain was beneath him. It would also add a really nice thematic cue to Yhwach's awakening of the Almighty, as it suggests that Yhwach had to literally confront and overcome death itself in order to reach a state that is beyond mortality. This is incredible to piece together, since Yhwach's entire aim was to rid the concept of death from reality. This theory also ties directly into his Christ-like origins, because according to the Bible, Jesus only gained all the power and glory from God after he had died and was resurrected, and in the same vein, Yhwach would be gaining his true godly powers after a resurrection of his own. If the anime does decide to go in this direction, then it would definitely improve upon the manga, where the finale of their battle had conveniently coincided with the restriction on the Almighty expiring. Instead, my theory hopefully portrays Ichibei's seal not as an overlooked detail, but as an integral part of the prophecy of the Kaiser Gesang. This would mean that the prophecy still accurately foretells the timeline of Yhwach regaining his strength, while also acknowledging that Ichibei's seal is a crucial factor of that equation. In conclusion, I believe that this theory is a compelling and plausible explanation for as to how Yhwach was able to regain the Almighty after Ichibei had sealed it over 1,000 years ago. It reconciles several convenient plot points in the manga into more of a coherent narrative that enriches the experience of the readers. Now we've reached the point of the video where I want to hand over the discussion to all of you. What do all of you think about the theory that I've proposed? Do you have your own theories for how Yhwach is able to regain the Almighty based upon all of the new anime exclusive material that has changed the manga? I look forward to reading all of your thoughts, so definitely continue the discussion in the comments. I know that I'm not the only one who has been scratching their head over this particular issue since the anime had ended, so be sure to share your own theories and let me know if I've made any mistakes or forgotten any points within this video. Lastly, thank you for making it to the end of this one, and I cannot wait to see you in my next Bleach video. If you enjoy my content, then you can support my channel through Patreon for as little as $1 a month, or even through YouTube by becoming a channel member. You will gain access to exclusive channel perks and a Discord server which I frequently use. So become a member of my Zero Division and be the first to know about my upcoming videos. And once again, thank you for sticking around till the end of the video, and whatever you contribute will mean a lot to me.